report. Awesome, cool. Well, but do you know if it's higher than UC?
I do. I'm fairly confident it's higher than UC.
Higher, right? Okay. Okay, cool. So in general, in bigger schools, what I notice is that there are much more opportunities, which means there are more jobs available. So kind of the idea is that if you graduated from a popular school, just the fact that you have that name in your resume, that already plays a huge difference. Back in the day, as far as I understand, that was the biggest, probably, it played a much bigger role than it is now. So for example, when I was at TI, I remember I was talking to MIT students and they were telling me that, so that back in the day, just like, when they show up at the job interview, they just show like MIT diploma and that's pretty much it. So that's the whole job interview. That was enough to get a job. Okay, but nowadays it's not anymore. And I thought maybe it's not true anymore for top companies like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, but they were telling me that even in lower tier companies, for example, TI, Texas Instruments, that was the same thing. So just a diploma from MIT is not enough anymore. Okay, but still, that still holds. I remember, so like what I noticed since I was teaching a lot of senior students at UC and I'm teaching a lot of senior students here, the difference I find is that, like, if I average everything out, so if we take exactly the same, two exactly the same people, one of them will be with a resume from, like, in one of them, so one of them is going to have the resume where it says like he graduated from UC, the other one would say graduated from FMU. The guy who graduated from UC, although the experience is the same, so although they know like fairly little about computer science, they only like took, I don't know, like 10 classes, they had like the same projects, okay, only because of, again, that name, the UC grad would get maybe 3 job offers without doing much, and our graduates will get like 1 or 2. That's the difference I found. Okay, so whenever you go to more school, a bigger school, it definitely gives you more opportunities. Okay, more, which translates to more job offers. At least, well, I guess it's true on all the levels, right? So if you compare bachelors, people who got the bachelor's degree at UC, at FMU, or Clemson, right? That would be the difference. Same thing if you compare masters in the bigger school and the smaller school. Same thing, PhDs in bigger school and smaller school. Same thing. Okay, now another difference, huge difference. Professors have much bigger classes. So, well, you've seen how, like, what kind of classes we have, right? There'll be like 5, 10, 15 students. When I was teaching at UC, and then when I was studying there, especially for classes like 190, they would have literally 100 or 200 students. Okay. So imagine a 190 for 200 students. It will be like a huge auditorium. There'll be one professor who's given all the lectures, okay, and he would do it, let's say, twice a week, and then they'll be split into huge amount of sections for the labs and for practice exercises. And they, of course, there is no way, like, for example, if I'm teaching a class, right, 190, then like I can, this year actually I had a lot of students, but before, or with smaller classes, I can kind of see like what each individual, right? So each student is getting or not getting. I can kind of slow down or speed things up. So there, of course, when you have 200 students, there is no way to do it, right? So you can't simply do that. That's why you have a pace. So you're planning to cover this, and no matter, like, even if the whole auditorium doesn't get it, right? You can't really do much because, well, and it's difficult to see that like everybody's not getting it either. So naturally, students get a lot less attention. Okay, so I would have, that would totally normal for me. So for example, at UC, I have never been advised, never. So I would never come to like, I wouldn't come to my advisor. He wouldn't tell me what classes to take. I would have to figure that out on my own completely. And then I would just like, he would, I think he would push a button or not push a button, and like he would never check. He would never check. So everything was my responsibility. That was totally normal for me, like to send an email and to a professor, okay, especially again if you had a like big classroom, and receive a response like in 2 months, or never receive response at all. And that of course sounds like horrible, but at the same time, I remember when I was like in the office of a professor, I saw his like email feed, and he would literally receive maybe, you know, like I would talk to him for an hour, and he would receive maybe 20 emails in an hour. He would receive like 100 emails per day, and like how can you respond like to all of them such that you give like equal amount of attention to everybody, right? So students get a lot less attention now. In bigger schools, they have teacher assistants, TAs, okay, and those are usually like high level students who are helping to teach this class. That helps especially for like very low level classes like 190, but also a lot of time, like I remember when I was and I was taken, but I remember my friend, one of my best friends, he was TA in a compiler construction course, okay, although he didn't know like almost anything about it. So he was not useful at all. They kind of they mismanaged the whole thing, I guess that's what we would call it. So like again, so just like the whole thing is much more hectic. You are on your own. It doesn't mean that education is worse though. It doesn't mean that. The standards are very high. Okay, it's just like you have to understand that you kind of you on your own, and you have to be more responsible for everything you do. So here at the FMU, my experience is that we're kind of like babysitting our students. We're doing probably even too much for them. We're like carrying too much weight for them. Okay, while in all other schools that I was teaching or like I was studying, like the students were more not responsible, but what do you call it? So they were more on their own. They were more proactive. Yeah, they were doing more on their own. Okay, so do not hesitate emailing and coming to office hours multiple times. Okay, that's kind of the conclusion. So like if you don't receive an email back, okay, then just like email it again, or come to office hours. Like I remember when, especially with these classes, with huge classes, when a student come to office hours, there'll be a line like of 5 students. You have to wait also like for half an hour. Okay, but if it's truly important to you, like if it's very important to you to get his attention, then just don't hesitate to be obnoxious. Okay, that's my conclusion. But of course, this whole thing teaches students how to solve all the problems on their own, mostly. So if you have a question about, like if I had a question about the book, I would understand that like if I'm getting, I would not send an email to professor immediately. I would just spend maybe like an hour trying to understand what the problem is by myself, and then it would just come to somebody else. Okay, so that kind of like disciplined me personally, and I think other students as well, that like you kind of try to work it out on your own first, okay, and then then go to someone else, because that may take a lot of time. So usually professors are busy with research, okay, and now here's something which is not, I don't think you will hear anywhere else. So my conclusion that in bigger schools, especially if it's higher ranked schools, the research is for professors is more important than teaching. So what does it mean? For example, here at the FMU, we have very few students. So to us, students are important, okay? And we definitely do not want to lose students that we have. At UC, I remember, and in Clemson, I'm pretty sure it'll be the same thing, since they always have huge student body, right? So like if something happens to them, and if like somebody's not satisfied, if somebody's complaining, it's not that big of a deal, because they're always going to have like huge amount of students, okay? Now, so, but what is the research though? What is the research? What does that mean? And here's what we're going to discuss later. Yeah, so professors really need scientific research papers. Okay, so what do I mean by that? I've seen it multiple times when a professor, so for example, we're hiring, right? I remember at UC, we were hiring a professor. Okay, hiring a professor. So Christopher, try to guess, like if there was like one most determinant factor, so like one most important factor, okay, of like, imagine if the whole job interview process was only one question, what would that question be? What do you think?
Most likely something around the lines like tell me about your research.
Pretty much, yes, yeah, pretty much. So yes. So like kind of, if that's all the money the department is getting, right, all the money. Now, some part of it is going to be student tuition, right? So students' body, right? Students, okay. But again, it's just like there are so many of them. That is never a problem. But whenever a professor is conducting some kind of research, he's getting grants from NSF or like some other agencies which are going to fund them, right? So they're giving money to the department, they're giving money to him, and they're giving the money to students to support the students as well. So what I see all the time is that so the research for that reason, because that's what generates money for the department mostly. That's why professors are focused on that. But also, for example, again, like when I saw how people are hired at USC, kind of one most important question that we're asking is, how many papers do you have? Because they're interested in, if we hire you, how many papers, scientific papers, can you produce per year? That's basically how they judge. So how many scientific papers can you produce per year? Okay, so can you do like 2? Can you do 3? Can you do 4? So within the years that you have been doing research, how many grants have you received? How many grants, right? And how many papers have you produced? That's kind of the question. Because teaching, what is teaching like? I don't know, like take any class. For those guys who are very smart, right? Like teaching is not a problem. They can definitely teach. They definitely know the material, right? Like just like if it's something else complicated, I don't know what will be the most complicated course that you took. But for them, it's easy. For them, it's easy. So like no matter what kind of teacher, no matter, so like if let's say there are 10 people coming in, right, for the job interview, and I'm thinking who to hire, I definitely know that all of them can teach. That's not a question. But can you bring me the biggest amount of money? Can you give me like a lot of research? That's what's important to them. And now another thing which I would encourage you to think about is this. If you decide to pursue PhD, okay, then possibly you would think, okay, so after that, like I want to, for example, teach and do research, right? So teach plus research, which means like you want to become a professor, right? Then, for example, let's say again, so hypothetically, you go to Clemson for master's degree, then you graduate, then you're thinking, okay, I want to get a PhD as well. So you get a PhD, and you're thinking, I want to do like, I want to teach and I also do research. So I want to become like a kind of professor. Then I can give you like, I don't know, 99% guarantee that Clemson won't hire you. Can you guess why? Not necessarily Clemson, but like any university. So like the university you graduated from, okay, so the school you got PhD from will not hire you. Can you guess why?
I'm actually stumped because I would honestly have no idea why they wouldn't hire you if you do all like again the master's there or something like that.
Yeah. So here's the reason. They're saying like kind of, and that's what so here's the reason. Again, talk about thinking about the money, right? So like, so your focus will be what? Like data visualization?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So if let's say you get a master's in data visualization, right, and then you, for example, decide to get a PhD, most likely, okay, so unless you really hate this topic, it will also be about data visualization. Okay, what does it mean? That means there is a professor who will be coaching you, who will be teaching you, who you will be writing papers with on data visualization. Okay. And then, so that's going to be automatically your research interest. So you're gonna, like, imagine you work for, let's say, 3 years on data visualization, right? So 3 years of your life you dedicate towards data visualization as a topic. Like while like you pursue PhD and you wrote a lot of papers on it. Then you graduate and you want to teach and you want to do research. Then what does that school, what does Clemson know? That if they hire you, you will be working data visualization And your professor who was teaching you, he's also going to be working data visualization. That means, so kind of you, right, and your professor, and you both will be applying for the same grants. You will be competing with each other. They will not be able to get as much kind of like, I don't want to say profit, but you will be applying for grants on data visualization, and your professor will be applying for grants on data visualization. He taught you, you guys are doing basically the same thing. But if they hire somebody whose research interests are different, especially if it's a hot topic, then then the professor will be applying for grants on data visualization, and like that somebody else will apply for grants on, let's say, artificial intelligence. That's why that they have like the rule, as far as I understand, it's pretty hardcore. It's like look at resumes on any professor. It just extremely rarely does it happen that a person would graduate from a school and he would also he would get his PhD at that school, and he would also be teaching that school for that reason, because you and your professor and you, like who you and your advisor, will be competitors, and you will not be able to bring as much. You'll be competing for the same grants. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that actually makes perfect sense.
Yes, yeah. So like again, it's not well, how to say that? It's not that obvious. I learned that like after like a lot of years of like kind of like of seeing how that happens. Okay, that's kind of not like it's bad, not like so there is a huge amount of universities, and there are like and they will be looking for somebody in data visualization. Okay, it's just like something which may be surprising, but that's what I see how that works. Again, like just you don't have to believe me. Just look at like again a resume of any of your professors, and they all they would graduate from somewhere else. I found only one case. There is a lady who is teaching at USC, and she graduated with PhD at USC. And I was wondering why, like, isn't it the same thing? And as it turned out that she's not doing any research right now. Well, no, but she basically, so they made an exception to her only because she's amazing at managing people. And she took a role where she manages people only and not doing that much research anymore. Okay, so yes, I mean, she's not bringing money, right, to the department, but she's amazing at managing people. So it just like, it's a rare case, it's an exception. Of course, again, it's like at our department, I remember they were saying, okay, so you graduated from us, just don't hope for it. Don't hope that we're going to hire you. We can if you want to, but then like if you graduating with data visualization, then go somewhere else. Okay, then pick up some other topic. No, hold on. Okay, pick up some other topic, for example, AI, artificial intelligence, and then come back to us. Okay, and then if we need somebody in artificial intelligence, okay, but then we'll hire you. But of course, no one is doing it. It just extremely rarely happens, of course, because like you spend 3 years here, you have the most amount of experience in data visualization, so now you need to give up on it, and then you'll be learning something else, and then you just come back, and maybe they will not need anyone in AI, right? Maybe they already have somebody in AI. So it's like of course, I mean, no one is doing it. It's much better just like to think about, okay, I personally like really love data visualization, and I'll just go teach somewhere else, or I'll be doing research somewhere else. Okay, yeah. So one of the things which is very important to understand here is the professors really need scientific research papers. That's what that's their main goal. So I remember when I was working at TI, I saw the contract. So the TI was signing the contract with was signing the contract with UC, okay, and that contract was basically saying that, I forgot, they were saying that TI is going to pay for the whole research. They're going to pay, I think, 60 grand per year, okay. Now they were saying that 30 grand, I think half of it goes to the department. Okay, and then I think 30 grand, the other 30 grand are split between the professor and so professor and student. Okay, somehow. So the professor is getting a chunk of it, but the department is getting I think the most out of it. Okay, and that's why, again, to them it's important. To them, like for the department, it's very important. They, of course, they wouldn't really like tell us that, right? But it's my opinion. I may be wrong. I may be wrong about that, but that's what I saw. That's what I saw. That's my opinion. Okay, so again, the conclusion here, that's probably not something you're interested in, but the conclusion here is that professors really need scientific research papers. Okay, and now, so you are in MS program, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so do you know the difference between an MS and ME?
I actually do not know the difference.
Okay, so MS is called Master of Science, and ME is called Master of Engineering. Okay, the difference between them is this: you're gonna take, these guys are taking exactly the same classes, okay, and but at the end, before the graduation, so you can go to the website and you can look up what is it? It's called degree requirements. Okay, it's called degree requirements. Highly recommend looking this up. Okay, degree requirements. It basically shows. So don't confuse it with application requirements, right? So it shows not what you need in order to get into the program. It shows what you need in order to graduate. Okay, so Master of Science is going to have certain degree requirements, which you need to fulfill in order to get this degree when you are inside of the program. Okay, and it's going to tell you how many hours, what classes are core, what classes are not core, what classes are elective. Okay, and same thing for Master of Engineering. So these guys, okay, have almost the same degree requirements with one huge difference. These guys take exactly the same classes, but at the end, you know, like here we have capstone project, right? But these guys, Master of Engineering, they take qualification exam or like comprehensive exam. I think it's called comprehensive at UC, but it's just, you know, like the matter of the name, comprehensive exam. So what is it? It's basically one exam, like 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour exam, which contains questions from 3 most important classes in their opinion. So imagine if at the end of them, that's what actually we did in Russia, I remember. So before graduating, what are the things that you need to pass? There is an exam. They select 3 classes. For example, I don't know, in our case, it would be maybe 227, software development, and maybe 318. Okay, so imagine those 3. And then we're going to create an exam, which is going to have questions from all of these classes. Okay, and they need you need to prepare for that. And it's, so look at kind of, again, like 3 exams at a time, in one. So 3 classes within 1 exam. Now at UC, the idea is that this comprehensive exam is not meant to be a challenge. Okay, that's what I heard from the professors. They were saying, we're going to, like, you need to study for that. You need to like spend maybe, I don't know, a week or 2, 3, maybe like, 20 hours maybe. Yeah, well, 20, 30 hours. I would say like 10 hours per class, right? Then but it's like we rarely fail in anybody. It just, again, it's not the purpose. We just want to make sure that you remember like the majority of the material. Okay, so again, like 30 hours of studying and you're done. Now, Master of Science, that's different. So again, you're taking the same classes, but at the end, you need to write a thesis. So what is a thesis? It's very similar to PhD dissertation, but on a very small scale. Okay, so that's a document where you're gonna conduct the research. Okay, in your case, it will be on data visualization. Okay, again, look it up on the website for degree requirements. They should clearly spell this out, what it takes to get this degree. And usually they talk about hours, and then at the end they say like you need to have a thesis. Okay, so which means you need to carry out some research. Okay, and to the professors, what does it mean? Okay, so again, what did I say? At the professors, it means that there is an opportunity to write papers with you, okay, scientific papers. So that thesis would be, I don't know, it's not really about the length, how long the thesis is going to be, but it's more about the impact, like what are you trying to do there? Okay, so you'll be working with your advisor on data visualization. He will say, for example, what if we create a new, or you will come up with that. It really depends on the advisor as well. Okay, so you will come up with the topic, but basically there is a scientific problem which needs to be solved. So why don't we try to solve, for example, how do we visualize data? I don't know. it should be not, it should be something not engineering. So it's not like you create a website. It's not like something which is already known and you do it in a new way. It should be something like fundamentally different. Okay, I don't know, again, like visualizing data from OpenCV. What if we just like take OpenCV, and what if we create a heat map based on that without actually like measuring temperature? What if we try to guess what the temperature is? Something like this. So, and that's going to be a topic, and you're going to work on it for, let's say, well, actually, it also really depends. Okay, how long will it take you? Okay, but let's say a year. Okay, so you'll be working on the research, and then you will need to create like there'll be a document, and it's going to be like extremely rigorous in terms of formatting, like kind of like a research paper, like for, I don't know, 40 pages, something like this. Okay, and that's going to be a thesis. So again, it's just like a lower scale, lower tier of PhD dissertation. Okay, and then of course, if you made some scientific impact, professors really like it, because they will be able to say, hey, like, why don't we write papers on it and like publish it, right? And then like it's nice, for example, if you decide to go with a PhD route, or you decide to do some research later, it's nice because you're going to have papers on your resume. Okay, so it's going to be beneficial to you, and it's going to be beneficial for professors as well, because again, it's just like that's kind of that's kind of how they measure their performance. Yeah, so that is the difference. Master of Engineering, comprehensive exam, okay, and Master of Science, you write a thesis. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So okay, there is that. Now, before we get any further, RA versus TA. Do you know what they mean? RA, TA.
I'm familiar with RA. I know TA means teaching assistant, right?
Yes, yes. And RA means research assistantship. So most of the students who get into graduate programs, they get a so-called teaching assistantship, and I'm assuming that's what you got, right?
I'm trying to think. No, actually, I didn't, just because the place that I'm going, I'm about to say, I'm not going to the actual Clemson main campus. I'm going to be in Charleston. So
Uh-huh.
they don't offer as many assistantships and whatnot as they do the main campus.
Okay, so will we have to pay for classes then?
Yeah, that's only.
Mm. Okay, yeah, but that can be changed. That can be changed. So let's talk about that. So research assistantship versus teaching assistantship. Basically, kind of the problem they're running is this: that most of the students, unless the international students, unless they're coming from like other countries, most of the students, they especially if it's something like computer science where we have a lot of jobs, they would rather pick up a job, and they would not rather not go to grad school, right? And that's why kind of for the grad schools, it's kind of always the problem. How do we get good students? So like, let's say a student has been going to Clemson for 4 years, and now we're thinking, okay, so how do we keep them, right? How do we kind of motivate him to go to grad school? Okay, we instead of like picking up a job. Okay, so then like one of the most important problems that they run into is that like they need to pay for education, right? So this kind of asking, kind of saying like, what if we pay for the education, right? So what if we like waive the tuition? And then they came up with these two things: teaching assistantship, research assistantship. Teaching assistantship means that you're going to help a professor teach a class which you have taken before, or which they definitely know you're very good at. For example, in our case, 190, right? So like we have 190 TA's lab, like one TA, right, for 190 labs. The idea is that we're going to waive your tuition, and then we're going to pay you small stipend, right? So like so you're not going to pay for classes, but you also will get some money to your pocket, right? And like kind of again, so the idea is that for international students, they're not allowed to work in the United States. I know it's like a really weird rule, but basically, kind of the only way they can get money is from TAs. That's why they have to pay them. Okay. Meanwhile, like if you're American, of course you can work as many jobs as you want. But the idea is this: they're going to waive your tuition. They're going to pay you money on top of that. Okay. Usually they match it with minimum salary. Okay. So usually, for example, if the minimum wage is I don't know, what is it like? What do we have, like $7 something an hour? So what we
Yeah,
have?
like 750, 725.
Okay, yeah. So have that. Then they say like, that's my experience, because I got admitted to a lot of schools, and I was looking at those like stipends, and like I have a feeling that they match it with the minimum going rate. And in this case, they're going to pay you, let's say again, like $16,000 a year. Okay, something like this. Go like this. So again, that is on top of waiving the tuition. So they're gonna say like, hey, we're gonna give you, I don't know, like $40,000 a year, okay, but then like what is it, 24 are gonna go to waive the tuition, and then this is will go like to your pocket on top. Okay, that's kind of as far as I understand that strategy. So teaching assistantship, right? You'll be helping our teach, let's say 190. Okay, you'll be like you go to the lab. There'll be like also, let's say like 50 students. You'll be answering their questions. They'll be asking how to do Java, Shmava. They'll be just like very new to programming. Or if you took some kind of other course which is more advanced, and the professor likes you, who's teaching that, right? He may ask the department to fund you. So this money comes from the department. Okay, very important to understand. So again, when you have a huge chunk of money from the department, right? So like this huge amount of money come from the department, and they kind of like they split in this, and they're thinking, okay, so we want to support as many students as possible, right? So let's try to get as many TAs as possible as well, such that they will be helping us doing the research and writing papers for us, with us, I guess. Okay, and then well, yeah, so that comes from the department. So the dean or the head of the department decide, they set aside the budget, they allocate this much money, and they say, okay, so we can support, for example, like 10 students, right? And then let's say the 20 students apply, right? In this case, we're gonna support, we're gonna select the 10 best students who we think are best. So which is nice, like if you decide to teach later, right, that'll be very nice for you to teach during the like in grad school. So this all can change. They make the decision on the semester to semester basis, which means that, for example, if the dean found you on the first semester, after the first semester, then we think, wow, Christopher is actually a very good student. Okay, we really like him. We definitely want him to we definitely want to show our appreciation. We definitely want him to study with us. Okay, like what if he transfers, for example? What if somebody else gives him like that tuition waiver? Like, we don't want that. So let's keep him. And then you can talk about that, and they can actually give you like that teaching assistantship. Okay. Yeah. So that may change every semester, basically. Okay, because yeah. So I've seen the opposite. I've seen how people are saying that, hey, that student is actually bad. It's possible that he will not finish. Okay, or like he will not be completing our degree. And then in this case, what's the point of supporting him, right? Then just like let's not support him with the assistantship. Okay, so that changes frequently. Okay, now what is the opposite? Research assistantship. Okay, so kind of the idea is the same. So they cover tuition, they pay you some money. Okay, but you're doing research for it. Okay, like kind of as your duty. Now this is not related to your department. Technically, okay, so this money is not coming from here, it's coming from that those grants. So for example, again, if there is NSF, okay, or TI, there is a company, right? So they pay money to this department, and so that money comes from them. Now you, the student, doesn't really play an important role there. For a company, it's very important who's managing it, which is the professor. Okay, so the professor is applying for those grants, he's getting those grants, and then like when it's confirmed, he's looking for a student who can help him write those papers and like carry out that research. Okay, so here what do people do? They basically, so what you can do, you can talk to professors, you can send them all emails, all of them, saying, hey, like I'm really interested like in doing some research. Do you have any opportunities? Do you have any grants? Are you looking for any people? And that also, so again, like one of the most important jobs of a professor in a bigger school is to apply for those grants. Apply for them. I'll apply to a lot of them, like maybe, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 per semester, as many as possible, because each one of those grants generates what? Papers, and each one of those grants generates money. Okay, so for them, it's extremely important. So again, how do you get a TA? You talk to the dean of the department, okay, and you're saying like, I want to teach, I'm passionate about this. How do you get an array? You talk to the professors and they're saying, hey, have you recently got any grants? Okay, what kind of expertise are you looking for? Maybe I can be a good fit. And in that case, they're going to cover your tuition, they're going to waive it, and then they will pay you some money on top of it. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Cool, perfect. Yeah, so you're definitely welcome to ask any questions in the process of it. So I remember when I came in, I had a TA I was teaching actually, yeah, I was teaching actually 190. I was teaching 190. Okay, but then but then my professor was working. Yeah, so here's what happened to me. Maybe it will help you as well. So I came in, I saw that, yeah, I was teaching. It was fun. It was fun. And then I saw that my professor and a couple of other Chinese students are working on a research project for Texas Instruments. And I said, like, I really like what you guys do. Let me work for free. Okay, and I was working for free on two. Yeah, so and that's what I did for two professors actually. There was like one in computer science, the other one in electrical engineering. So I basically had three jobs. So I was taking classes, of course, but I was teaching, and I was doing the free research. I was doing research for free for TI, and I was doing the research for free for another professor in another department, electrical engineering. Okay, and then so I was trying to help them as much as I could. There was tough, of course, it was like very long hours. But then those Chinese students who work in the TI projects, they graduated. Okay, and the professor is thinking, okay, so the research is still going on, right? We still have some money. Who should I hire? But I've been there, and then like I've been working there for free for the last year, and then of course he would hire me. Okay, and then I switched. So I came to the department head. I said like, hey, I'm giving an array. I'm getting an array. Array. They're not allowing a student to get more than one position. Okay, so you cannot teach twice as much. You cannot do research on two projects. Well, at least paid, okay, because they want somebody else to be funded also. So you can't really take two spots, and you can't really do RA and TA at the same time also, because again, you cannot take two spots, because otherwise, because they would rather fund somebody else also with it. They would rather have another student. Okay, that's what happened to me. So I tried both. I was in both, and I was working then for TI, and then he asked me for the internship. So working for free for quite a long time actually paid off. Okay, actually paid off. Yeah. Again, TA comes from the department. RA comes from the professor who is applying for those grants. Now let's talk about again MS versus ME versus PhD. So we discussed this, right? What is difference between MS and ME? Now, what is the map? Okay, so do you know how long will your program take? Approximately how many years?
It says around, I'm gonna say people usually graduate in 2 years.
How many?
2 years.
3 years. Okay, 3 years. That makes sense. 3 years. Okay, so so here's the map usually. After MS or Master of Science or Master of Engineering. Oh, by the way, yeah. So my professors tell me that people in industry, they appreciate people with this versus people with that. I do not know if it's true or not, because of course they may be biased. They of course want more papers, so they would rather have people doing this, have students doing that. But that's what I was told. Not sure if it's true or not. I didn't really see any evidence in either of those cases. After getting MS or ME, you can do what? You can either get a job in industry, okay, in which case usually the best thing to do, for example, if you get in MS in data visualization, and then to the employer, it means what? That means you have a lot of experience in data visualization. So that does what? That does what? No, hold on, it's not VPN. That does what? So imagine this is this circle is all amount of jobs which are available to software developers, to computer science students, right? So then the rule which we discussed, which I was talking about before in 401, is that if you get an advanced degree, then ultimately they have to pay you more. Okay, so you cannot get a master's degree and then ask for the same amount of money as a bachelor degree owner would have. You can't do that. They I don't know. It's going to be such a rare exception. No one's going to allow that to happen. If you got another degree, then you have to be paid more. If they cannot pay you more, then they will just not hire you. That's why if that is all the jobs available to computer science people, right, then maybe, I don't know, some part of it, I don't know, how big that chunk is going to be. I don't know, maybe this. So then this is not going to be available to you anymore, okay, because you will have to be paid more, right? So if these guys just want to create a website, Now, like data visualization, master's degree in data visualization, like that's not really necessary, right? And then they'll have to pay you more for something which they don't really need. They don't like that. Okay, so you, like people who get master's degree, they have fewer jobs, but still, like this circle is so big. Okay, you'll definitely be able to find a job and multiple jobs. Okay, so the amount of offers is so huge, but it's just not as huge, not as unlimited as to well, no, I can say that. So like if you have bachelor's degree, you can't really apply for this part probably either. Okay, but anyway, so what happens after that? Now you get a new master's degree, and then the most natural way of pursuing a job is to actually apply your knowledge. So like if it's data visualization, then you will be applying for projects, you're applying for jobs where people look for data visualization specialists, especially again, if you really like this topic, if you really enjoy it, how data visualization works. Okay, then you'll be looking for, yeah, so where's the map, right? So after doing this, you can either get a job in data visualization, right, in industry. There are not that many companies who do it, but there are still a lot of companies. Okay, so like you will not be out of job. Or you can just get, or like if for, I also saw certain companies saying that like, yes, it's like to us, master's degree means that you're actually more qualified, that you're more disciplined, you know more. Okay, we didn't really care about like data visualization or the speciality, like what you specialized in. We didn't really care about that. We just want a person who's more experienced, and we want to promote him into management position quicker. Okay, so they would also give you a job, right? So again, although this is true, but again, it doesn't mean that it shouldn't discourage you. It doesn't mean that you will not be able to find a job. Okay, so you can either do that, or if you enjoyed scientific part of it, right? If you enjoyed writing papers, if you enjoyed this writing thesis, then you can apply for a PhD program. Okay, so again, you get a master's degree. Okay, after that, either go find a job in the industry. Okay, so kind of like you can do what Samuel was doing. Okay, but then focus on data visualization. Or also, if it's so specific to data visualization, usually the faculty members have connections in industry. Because, for example, if I own a company and we are producing cameras, right? And we want to have some kind of or let's say you found a company and we do a lot of statistics, so we want to visualize the data, right? In this case, I probably need a person who specializes in data visualization, and it's not everybody. And I would find sooner or later, I would find Clemson University who has the program like that, and I would say like I need one person. Then if my company grows, I need another person, third person. So I saw that happening a lot. That a company would have, who has specific needs, would have good relationships with certain faculty members, and they can of course offer good job opportunities. But anyway, so you either get a job, or if you enjoy the scientific part of it, you can apply for a PhD program. Okay. Now, so in PhD, what do? You will not be taking that many classes anymore, or like you will be, but they'll be like really abstract. Okay, and it'll be like don't be that difficult. And not hands-on, but you'll be focused on the research. So you'll be just kind of doing this much more. Okay, and after which you can either get a job in industry. Okay, but now what's going to happen is this. So if that is for bachelor's, let's say this chunk, which is smaller. Okay, so this chunk is for masters. Okay, so that's not yours anymore. So now you have this left, but you have very little competition because there are very few PhD holders as well. Okay, apply for PhD program. Okay, now, yeah, so after PhD, you can either get a job in industry. So again, all the companies who are doing any kind of research, especially those big companies, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Qualcomm. Okay, so it's not like just a local software development shop. It's not like somebody who's creating websites, because again, you want to do research. So you want to create, you're supposed to be creating like breakthroughs in science. Okay, so either do that, or apply for work for jobs in national laboratories. Okay, governmental jobs. And I have a couple of friends working there, and they really love it. Okay, so getting a job in industry and then working on something which makes money, or getting a job in the national labs, okay, which is getting more and more, which is basically this, right? But without university, without teaching. Or you can teach at a university. You can teach at a school, which means teaching, right? So like teaching some classes and doing research, but mostly doing research. The focus is doing research, and then if you apply for university, then they'll be looking at what you have taught, what you teach, and most importantly, again, how many research have you published, and what is your specialty, right? Like you'll be applying for grants in data visualization. Want to make sure that you will not be competing with anyone, right? National laboratories, pretty much the same thing, but no teaching, okay? And you will not be applying for that many grants. I don't think it's important to them. Or get a job in the industry, okay? So again, just look, work in Google, Amazon, all of those guys. Okay, now, very important point here, okay, I didn't write it here, but that's kind of also one of the things which I learned, and I don't think it makes sense, I don't think it's that obvious either. So if you get a PhD, let's say in Clemson, okay, and you decide to teach, you most likely, and I also saw very few exceptions from this rule. If you get a PhD in a school, let's say ranked, I don't know, 50 in the country, right? Then most likely the university who's going to hire you is going to have the rank. So it's going to be a school which is ranked lower than the school you got a PhD from. So if you are graduating from Clemson, then and you want to teach, the university who's going to hire you, unless there is some kind of like exception, is going to be lower ranked than Clemson. If I got my PhD at UC, most likely any school who is higher ranked than UC is going to hire me. Is not good. Yes, most likely none of those schools are going to hire me. I've seen only one exception. That was when a person who was extremely productive in research, and he, like, what does it mean? Just bunch of papers, huge amount of papers. He was just writing them day and night. And that I saw it once. We had a student at USC, and he became a professor at NYU. That is an exception that rarely happens. Same thing, just look up all the resumes from your professors, and you will see that the school they got their PhD from is higher ranked than the school they're teaching at. That's usually the rule. Does it make sense? Yeah, that's usually the rule. So like again, if you're thinking I want to get like I want to be teaching later, right? Then maybe it's better to get a PhD in a school which is like higher ranked. So for example, if I get a PhD at MIT, then like any school is going to hire me. Harvard, right? And then so if you get a like PhD in a top school, then almost any other school is going to hire you for that reason. So anyway, there'll be a lot of opportunities, a lot of decisions to make in the grad school career. I think it's difficult to know what you enjoy without trying it. So my recommendation would be honestly trying both, teaching and carrying out some research while in grad school. So I remember when I came to grad school, I was absolutely sure that I want to do research, and then kind of the opposite happened. So I tried both, and I spent a lot of years doing both. And now I understand that I enjoy teaching more. Okay. But of course, yeah, so I thought I want to do research back in the day when I didn't have that much experience of teaching. Okay. And then when I tried both equally, I realized that I enjoy teaching more. Advisor, let's talk about advisors. Okay. So you should be able to choose or change one. Okay. I say it all the time that a professor, just like a student would say like, hey, like, no offense, I just want to be working with that professor, or like with this professor. Okay. I want to change my advisor. For Masters of Engineering, there is almost no difference. There is no difference. Why? Because again, what are you doing for Masters of Engineering? You taking classes, and then you complete a comprehensive exam, right? So this exam depends only on you, no one else. You just study for that exam, you pass that exam. There are very few people who fail it, very few. you pass that exam and then you graduate. For Master of Science, there is a huge difference. Huge difference. Why? And here we're coming to also important topic. Dun. So let's pick an example. Let's pick an example. So let's say I'm working on the research, and we are, for example, at TI, I remember we were improving matrix multiplication algorithm on TI boards. Okay. So the whole idea is that we know that it takes, so in the high performance computing, everything is measured in gigaflops. Okay, which is billions of floating operations per second. Okay, gigaflops. So how many so kind of you can't really measure in seconds, right? Because it really depends on how powerful the board is. So that's why you measure everything in gigaflops. How many floating? So how many floats, like float multiplied by float? How many of those floats can you multiply within a second? Like how many billions of those floats can you multiply per second? Okay, so let's say the topic of our research again is to improve certain algorithm on a certain board. Okay, makes sense. Now, what do? We need to have some kind of a baseline. Okay, so that's our baseline. Okay, and then we need to have some kind of a target. So that's our baseline. For example, we'll look at the board and we just like, I don't know, we run the algorithm on that board and we see, let's say, what do we used to see? 1.2 gigaflops. Okay. So as immediately, right out of the box, right? So without doing anything, we can get our performance is 1.2 gigaflops on the board, right? And now the purpose of my research, of my thesis, right, is to create a method to speed this up, right? To basically get more out of the same board. And then we'll be like, in my thesis, I'm going to describe in all the improvements. What do I do? For example, L1 memory, L2 memory, L3 memory, all the caches, then what else? Like RAM, right? So how to kind of like take advantage of different scratch pads, like it's a huge amount of ways of doing it. Okay, and I'm gonna test them all out, and then hopefully I'm gonna see, for example, like 3 gigaflops at some point. Hopefully here I'm gonna say 3. Okay, so does it make sense so far? What I'm explaining so far?
Yeah, so far so good.
Okay, cool. So again, imagine that you're here, right? And you see 1.2, okay? And then you're doing something like you have come up with some kind of improvement, okay? And you actually improved. So instead of 1.2, it became 2. Okay, and you come into your professor like, hey, take a look at this. Like we used to be 1.2, now I've got 2. And then professor says like, wow, well, that's nice. That's not, but you know what? It's not enough. Like in high performance computing, what is it? Like 80%, no, not 80, like 70, 60% improvement. That's not that much, you know, like we need more. So we keep trying, keep working. And then you came up with another idea and you improved it even more. And now it's 3. Okay, now keep in mind that, so again, originally you had 1.2 gigaflops. Then you got to 2 gigaflops, okay, and the professor's like, well, that's actually pretty good. It's not enough for the thesis though, right? It's not enough scientific impact, okay? So, but it's kind of good for a paper. So why don't we write a paper on it, okay? And you go ahead, write a paper, you publish it, so everything's happy. But he says like, you know what, like for the thesis, you definitely need more, it's just not enough. Like no one will accept it as a huge scientific impact. Okay, and you come up with something else, and then you push, and then you got to 3 gigaflops, and you're really happy about this, and you come to your professor, so like, okay, like I got from 1.2, now I got 3, and he's like, you know what is it? It's like 200%, right? 200, like 240%. That's pretty cool. So let's write a paper on it, right? Because now you have like another improvement. But you know, like for just like in our industry, like 240% is also not enough. Let's keep pushing. And now the more kind of the natural question is, but what's enough though? So 4, like will 4 be enough if I get to 4? Okay, but what if I get to 5? Will that be enough? Right? So what's enough? Like I'm improving. I can improve, I don't know, up to 20. Maybe if I spend like 20 years working on it, I'll get to 20 gigaflops, right? Maybe, right? But what's enough? When like kind of the most natural question which comes to people, when will I be able to graduate? What's enough? And here's what I noticed. What I noticed is that no one really knows what's enough. You know, it's like when you, like in stock trading, there is a term, like the stock goes up, right? So imagine you bought a stock here, right? Like some kind of Amazon, right? Back in the day. The stock goes up, then goes up, and then you're thinking, should I sell? Like you're thinking here, should I sell? Well, probably not. Maybe it'll go up. Okay, should I sell? Okay, and then it goes down. Maybe like, should I sell here? Is this going to drop? Then it goes up, right? Like, should I sell? Should I sell? So the hard truth is that like no one can really predict it. And there is a saying that the stock goes up until it doesn't. So you need to improve until you don't. And the only person who decides like, hey, that's enough, that's good, that's perfect. What I notice is that at least at UC, maybe in Clemson, if it's like a more high rank program, maybe they'll be different. But at UC, for example, when I talk to different students, different professors, the whole idea is that the professor is going to tell you, like, that's enough. So this is enough. But if he wants you to publish more papers, he will say, well, that's not enough. Let's do more. Let's do more. Let's do more. Let's do more. And again, the difference between ME, right, is that you're taking an exam and that's it, then you're definitely done. But if you get it in a MS and you have a professor who has extremely high ambitions, then you can literally just keep working for years and not achieve your goal. And imagine like you get in here, like to, I don't know, to 10, right? Everybody who started with already graduated, they found jobs, but your professor is telling you, hey, no, we need to keep working. And there is nothing you'll be able to do. Nothing. Like you can't complain to anyone. You just like, you know, like high academic standards, we have high standards. Like when you like, yeah, so if your professor is an expert, your advisor is an expert, he definitely knows. So, and at that moment, I remember that's actually one of the issues I had. I kept improving, and the professor was still not happy. Although it was just like we had a huge progress, and we already did like huge amount of those. And I'm like, when is it? And he was not telling me the answer. He wouldn't tell me like if we get here, then we're done. I was like, okay, so just, you know, like it's getting tough for me. Just let me know where. Okay, so just tell me. I don't know. It's here. Then I'll be fine. I'll be perfectly happy with that. Just tell me it's 25, and I'll just work my way up. But he wouldn't tell me this, and yeah. So that's the problem with the thesis, with the research. No one really knows when it's enough for to be an enough scientific impact. What I noticed is that, at least again at UC, which is again probably like lower end program compared to Clemson, if a professor says, for example, this is enough, and then you're going to present your research to a huge amount of other committee members, and kind of the idea there is that they don't really want to go against the professor. They don't want to say, you know what, like what the hell is that, like 2 gigaflops, you need to get 25, like is that research? Right? That's not a research, that's too low. So they don't really want to say that, because they will be kind of criticizing the colleague a lot. They want to say, because like in that case, committee members will be saying that like my colleague like is doesn't have as high standards and he's not doing his job properly, right? So although theoretically it's possible, that you, like, there is a committee, they need to evaluate your work, right? You're presenting your research to your committee. Theoretically it is, and I definitely know that at extremely high ranked schools like MIT, that happens all the time. They're going to tell you, what the hell is that? That's not research, screw that. You need to get to like 25, like two is not enough. At UC, for example, like that's what I learned. Like the professor determines what it is. Your advisor will determine what it is. And no matter how high or how low it is, committee will not go against the professor. So what the recommendation here is to talk to other students and ask them who almost graduate, and ask them about the advisor, how hard he is in terms of these kind of requirements. Because basically, again, like when you're doing research, when you're doing PhD or MS, that professor determines when it is enough, and there is nothing you can do. So he will determine. Some people get lucky, and some people get within the professors who are like extremely ambitious, extremely, and they want you to get to 25. For me, that was the worst because like not like the worst, but what I really hated is that my advisor would not tell me where to stop, like what's enough, like what, so like I mean, again, I wish there would be hard answer, even if it was extremely high. That's cool. I'll work it out. But just tell me what it is. Okay. So for MS, in my opinion, for scientific, there is a huge amount of research because they say, okay, that's enough. You're good. You're done. Now just like let's write it out in the thesis. Okay, and then all the committee members will say, perfect, thank you, which is usually what they say. Does it make sense, Christopher?
Yeah, that actually makes a lot more sense. I would have never thought to like think about that, but that makes so much sense.
Yeah. So again, that's kind of the purpose of this presentation, to share these things. So like what happened to me is that I got, for example, I don't know, somewhere over here, right? And then like again, I'm not receiving the answer, and I talked like once, I talked twice, I talked 3 times. I'm just saying like, hey, like give me an answer. I want to graduate. Just like, again, just I don't care if it's extremely high, just tell me what it is. And he wouldn't give it to me. And then I decided at some point, I decided to start looking for another advisor. And I started going through like professors. I started talking to them, and then I started talking to. Although again, well, what does it mean? That would be horrible. That would mean that I would have to scratch everything. So everything I worked here, right? So again, because there is one professor per topic, almost, right? So like everything that I worked on I'll have to do completely from scratch. But again, I was just so tired here, so I'd have to start over again. And I was ready for it. But then I started talking to professors. I started talking to students again, which is the best thing to do. That's my recommendation. Talk to students about their advisors. What do they think? Like, is he easy? Is he hard? What kind of requirements he has? Yeah, so other students told me that like it just like you can't really know. It's like other students started telling me that that I'm not going to benefit from this exchange. Basically, they were telling me that yes, our professor is going to tell you, for example, he's going to be better in terms of telling you the goal, but he's going to give you such a huge goal such that you will never graduate. Okay, or like vice versa. So like you kind of exchange in one to another one, and it just kind of my conclusion was not to change anything, just to keep pushing, just like keep pushing, and that's what I did. I just kept pushing, and at some point he said, okay, that's enough. At some point, I was really happy with it. Okay, so again, my recommendation is talk to professors, talk to students. Do not be afraid of changing one. Sometimes students do not want to let good students graduate. Can you guess why, Christopher?
I guess because like you have a good student, you want to try to keep them around as much as possible.
Yeah, that's correct. Especially again with everything which we have here. So like more papers, right? Because like good students, we have very few good students. A lot of like mediocre students. But if I have a very good student, right? So like, yeah. That's what I saw. I can't really say that like I saw that happening. I know that it does happen, but I don't think like it happened to me. I don't think it happened to anyone I know. But I saw a lot of people telling this, and I believe in that. And then also, of course, there is a moderation. So I really hope it won't happen to you. Do you have time, Christopher? Or we'll need to go because 11:45.
I'm good about until like 12 o'clock or noon.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, cool. Let's put it up then. Okay, so, but anyway, so yeah, this happens again for anything related to science, right? So again, for ME, everything is much more, is much stricter, it's much simpler. Okay, you just pass an exam and that's it, and you're done. Again, more papers, right? More papers. So if you decide to do research, then it's perfect for you. Then it's actually also good because the more papers you have before you graduate, the better. Okay, so the amount of them. That's kind of what they, yeah, and the amount and the quality in terms of like where is it published? Is it a conference or it's a journal? And for journals, it's much more difficult to get into than just conferences. Okay, so more and more papers. Again, if you want to do research, then it's better actually to stay maybe for a year, additional year, half a year to publish more. Okay, and then graduate, or if you, yeah, and if you're looking for the job in the industry, then sometimes they may look at it. Sometimes they won't. It really depends on Depends on the industry, but for them, it's definitely not as important. Now, coming to the biggest thing, okay, so biggest lesson. So if we have like, what is it, half an hour, 20 minutes, maybe that's enough. Okay, long story alert. Okay, so one of the biggest failures that I have experienced, not failures, lessons, one of the biggest lessons I learned, okay. So here's what happened. Here's what happened, Christopher. Okay, so okay, so here's what happened. Biggest lesson. So imagine the following. So 2014, I'm coming to my first semester at UC, my first semester in the United States. Okay, and I'm getting to orientation. Okay, and before that I had only a bachelor's degree. I didn't have master's or PhD, right? And I was getting I got into direct program. So from bachelor's directly to PhD. That's of course what university likes more than just people like you who just get a master's degree. Why? Because again, okay, if you're doing PhD, that means more papers, right? More papers. Yeah, that's why actually. So like, I have a YouTube channel where I talk about American education in Russian, and there I say like, hey guys, if you want to go to the United States to study, and if you're thinking like which to choose PhD, because in that case they want you more and they're gonna fund you a lot more frequently than master students, because master students by default they're just gonna leave in 2 years or in 3 years, especially ME. MS, they may stay and they may produce some papers, and E, they will not. So 2014, I'm getting into orientation. Okay, and here's what we have a graduate director. So yeah, by the way, very important to know him. So graduate director, who is that? It's a person who is, it's like we have program coordinator, Professor, right? She basically decides, she makes all the decisions on in our department. Now you have direct head of the department head, right? He makes all the kind of like Professor. He makes all the decisions in the department. Now you have a graduate director in each department. This person is not necessarily the head. It can be a different person. It's usually elected and it usually changes. So this person makes all decisions when it comes to grad students in that department. Okay, graduate director. That's his role. So 2014, I'm coming in. Graduate director tells us, "Hey guys, like I know you're getting PhDs. So here's the deal. The PhD, I think we were talking about 16. So if you get your PhD from bachelor's degree, it takes you 60 hours, 60 credit hours. Okay. Now PhD can take a long time, and he was saying like in his case, it took like 7 years. Of course, that's a long time. Right, and you may not enjoy it, you may not like it, you may like everything may happen, maybe there are some life circumstances. So what I can recommend you is do the following. You can apply for so-called dual degree, which means you'll be studying for PhD and master's at the same time. Okay, so here's what you can do. He was saying like apply for dual degree, take the first 30 hours and then graduate with master's degree. Kind of graduate and not graduate at the same time. So get your master's degree, okay, after 30 hours, and then immediately apply for PhD. And then what's going to happen is we're going to take those 30 hours, we're going to include them into these 60 hours, and you will have to study, okay, so PhD, okay, so 60 hours total for PhD. Okay, then they say he was saying apply for dual degree, 30 hours, graduate with ME, and then plus 30 hours more, and then you'll be able to graduate PhD. Okay, so he was saying you're not losing anything, right? You need to get 60 hours for the PhD, so why don't you just take 30 and then you'll get an additional diploma of master's degree, and then you just study for 30 more, and you will get additional, well, you'll get PhD, right? Does it make sense, Christopher?
Yep, so far so good.
Okay, perfect. And we were all sitting there like, wow, that's dope. Of course, yeah, we're gonna do that. Like, I mean, basically filling out a couple of forms, right? And then just get master's degree. Why not, right? And that sounds like fun. And then they actually changed it. I don't think they're allowing it anymore, and I don't think they promoted it because like too many people were finishing master's degree and leaving. Okay, and that's of course what. Okay, all about papers, right? So like if you get a master's degree, you will not be writing papers. They don't like it. Okay, so Anyway, 30 hours of a master's degree plus 30 hours of PhD. And we're like, okay, cool. So me and my friend, we immediately signed up for this whole thing, right? We just, yeah, let's do it. Okay, cool, perfect. Okay. How naive, right? So 30 hours, we got 30 hours, and then we graduated with, when was it actually? I think in 2017. And it's possible. It was possible to get them quicker, but well, yeah, let's leave it aside. So 30 hours, graduated with masters, okay? And we were really excited, right? And we just started studying for 30 more hours. No, I think I got more. I got a lot more hours. I think I got 40 hours or 42. And then I decided to kind of like to graduate for free with master's degree, okay? And I graduated with master's degree, but whatever. And then here's what happened next. The graduate director has changed many times. I did not know, but that role is not bringing any kind of benefit, and it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of responsibilities. It's a lot of organizational work. I'm not sure if professors are paid additionally if he's a graduate director or whatever the case is, but our professors really didn't like it, and they were just getting rid of it as quickly as possible. You can't really completely avoid it, as far as I understand, but like one semester and that's it. And they were changing the person who's making all the decisions. And of course, this decision is not his decision, right? This is university's decision. That's like the huge that cannot change. This person changes. Okay. Whew, okay, so 30 hours, a few years later, me and my friend, 30 hours, graduated with me. Okay, perfect. And then kept studying, right? So kept taking classes for PhD. Everything is cool. Everything's cool. We're doing it. So everything's fine. Okay. And then I'm about to graduate. And so we both of us about to graduate. Okay. So then here's what's happening. You ready? So we come to the secretary and we're just filling out the documents for graduation. And she's looking at it like, you know what, guys, just like, it sounded like you're missing some classes. You know, like, well, how come? Just no, it can't be. Like, I mean, I calculated all the hours, and yeah, so like bigger school, less attention, no advice. Well, at least I wasn't advised. I was just reading all the rules online, and I was trying to figure out everything online based on how they're written. You know, it's just well, yeah, that's how it works. So about to graduate, and then the secretary counts our classes, and it says like, hey, like you missed classes. And we're like, how come? Like, take a look at this, like 30 plus 30, right? So 60 total. So 60 hours total for PhD. I should be able to graduate PhD. And she was like, no, you know what? That's not true. Remember how those 30 hours that you graduated with master's degree, they actually don't count towards PhD. No, that's not how it works. She was like, only, and I forgot the number. I think it was like 8. I think only 18 can transfer. Or 12. What's the 12? Can transfer to PhD. Only 12, okay? Which means again, I got 30 here, right? But I cannot use those 30 anymore. Only 12 can transfer to PhD. So I need to get 18 credit hours. And in grad school, you usually take 2 classes per semester, usually, because you're doing a lot of research and all that stuff. So I need to get somewhere 18 credit hours, right? So which is what? 6 classes, which is like 2 semesters at least, okay? And me and my friend were like, what the fuck is that? We were so shocked, and we had no idea what to do. And we were like, no, look, we're promised. And there was a graduate director in 2014. And I think like a couple of years later, there was another graduate director who was telling us the same thing. So imagine like there is a dean or graduate director tells you something, you would never question it, right? You would always think that this is true. It can't be not true, right? Because like, I mean, who else would you believe? Okay, and then so we were completely shocked. We were just like, what the hell's going on? And then what? We went to the graduate director, right? And we said, look, like, and he was changed a lot of times. He was already like, it's a completely new person. And we're like, look, a lot of years ago, like 5-6 years ago, we were promised that this is true. 30 plus 30 gives us 60. We were not told that like this is the opposite. What do you think the graduate director does? He goes, and it's very important. So like kind of, where's the lesson, right? He goes to the bulletin. At least at UC, it's called the bulletin. Basically, it's a university document, kind of like a constitution for the university. So there is nothing more important than this. Kind of, like United States, there's nothing more important than the Constitution, right? So there's not, in the university, there is nothing more important than that. It's basically, it has all the rules and they're golden. So you can't argue with it, right? You always believed like that thing. So he goes to the bulletin, he goes to, and that, since this guy is associated with the university and another department, this guy is usually located at the university website and the department website. And then the department website usually just copies some of the words from the bulletin. But anyways, so he goes to Constitution. Am I making sense so far, Christopher?
Yeah, that's it. It all makes sense.
So what?
I said it all makes sense.
Okay, so he goes to Constitution and he shows us, hey, like, look at this. And what do you think he shows us? He shows us this. Like, it clearly says 30 hours from master's degree cannot be applied towards PhD. Only like 12 can transfer. We were like, what the hell? Like, but we were told this. How can we question? It's like, I have no idea what you were told. I don't care who told you that. Those are the rules. We were extremely shocked. So I started talking to, not to the lawyers, but to kind of like lawyers in other universities. And I was saying, like, how does it work? Like, how, like, what they just, it's not how it should be. And here's what they, so same thing. Like, so here's what they told me. They said that, look, if when you came in 2014, those were the rules, that they cannot change those rules in the middle of the whole thing. And we were like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense, right? So it's just so crazy, so nuts. Okay, so so they can't change it in the middle, right? So if you got admitted according to those rules, that those rules should be true, right? So what did we do? We went to we went to bulletin, on Verb Archive. Okay, Verb Archive. So we went to, you know what Verb Archive is? Yeah, so we went to Verb Archive and we looked at what the bulletin looked like back in 2014 when we were told this, right? So just to make sure that, like, well, before, so our idea was this: go to the bulletin, find that this is true, then go to Grad director, say that, you see, like, this can be true because back in 2014 this was true. So we go to the we kind of reverse engineer. We go to Verb Archive on the bulletin, and what do you think? We see this. We see that we cannot transfer like those 30 hours. Only 12 can be transferred. And I was like, what the hell is that? So in 2014, then a few years later, the graduate director told us something which is not true at all. So we were told this, but even back then, the Constitution was saying that, like, you can't transfer this. And I'm like, wow, it's just so, I mean, like, how would you expect, right? So like, if there is a graduate director, there's a person, like, if Professor Rao is telling you something, you probably assume it's true, right? Like, you're not going to question this. And that's what we felt like. How can we question if there's a person? And he's been doing it for a lot of years. So that guy, so in 2014, when we came in, there was like Shihari, there was a guy who's been doing it for like a lot of years, and he definitely got to know, like, right? So I'm emailing that person, that graduate director. He is not replying to me. Very nice. And then I'm emailing the guy who told us the same thing a few years later, right? In 2016, he's not replying either. Okay, so the former directors don't reply. Say nothing. Then what do? We were like, okay, we were lied to, basically, right? So we truly believe that that was the case, and that's true. And so here's the thing: we go to, and that's what that's part of the lesson. We'll go to ombudsman. So basically, ombudsman, that is a person who protects rights of graduate students at any university. So he is not affiliated with the department. He protects everything in the grad school. Okay. So we'll go to him. And now before that, and I like that's just, gosh, it's a cherry on top. Okay, it's a cherry on top. It's a cherry on top. It's a cherry on top of the whole thing. So when, like, imagine me in that situation, right? So like me and my friend, we're just completely like dumped. Well, so the cherry on top is this. I'm thinking, okay, so the whole thing is screwed up. That's not how it should be. Like, we were lied to, right? Everything is wrong. And then I'm thinking, but I can't be the only one, right? There gotta be some other students who were told in 2014 the same thing, right? Then if they kind of got the master's, then PhD, most likely the Americans. And they must have gone through the same thing. They probably they must have kind of thought the same way. They must have thought that, well, I'm going to graduate with ME, then get 30 hours, right, and then like kind of get 30 additional hours to get PhD. So I can't be the only one who was thinking that way, and I can't be the only one who actually realized this later. So I went back to the catalog, to some kind of catalogs publicly available, and I found a few names of students from my department who did so I found people who would graduate with master's degree from my department, and a few years later, they would the same names would graduate with PhDs. So I would guess they were trying to do the same trick with ours. Okay, that was my assumption. And I found their names. Of course, they already graduated, they were already working, and I emailed them. So I emailed students in similar position. In a similar position, right? So I mailed them, and I kind of I was asking is, hey, like you probably heard this, right? And then I see that you graduated with a master's of engineering degree, and then I see that you graduated with PhD. You probably wanted to keep those 30 hours, but now we are actually told that it's not possible. Were you told the same thing or not? Okay, does it make sense, Christopher, so far?
Yep, so far.
Okay, so yeah, so I emailed all the students. They were, I think I emailed like 3 people. They were not replying. They were just slow in reply. But okay, whatever. I'm going to the ombudsman. Okay, me and my friend go to ombudsman. So that's the guy again who just like protect our rights. So what are we trying to say? We were trying to say that we were lied, right? This is not true, and we're kind of saying, hey, can you please ungraduate us? Can you please take our master's degree back? Although we understand that's probably not possible. I mean, can you ungraduate a person? Just we're basically saying, can you just take our degree back, give us back our 30 hours, so get it like back to you. We don't need this. Give us back those 30 hours and just let us graduate with PhDs. Okay, so we're going to ombudsman. So again, whenever you have issues with a professor, who do you go to? The dean probably, right? Or the head of the department. But whenever you have like huge issues like this, who do you go to? You go to ombudsman. And so he was like, okay, it was interesting. So like very nice person. We're sitting in his office, me and my friend, and we're explaining the whole thing. And just the whole thing is screwed up. We're super frustrated. And he was like, well, okay, hold on. So like you guys are telling me that you thought that if you get 30 hours, you can graduate with master's degree, and then you can get other 30 hours, and then you can graduate with PhD, right? Just kind of thinking that you can apply those 30 hours and those 30 hours towards 60 hours total. Is that what you're saying? We were like, yes, that's exactly what we're saying. That's what we thought. And he goes like, but that's actually true. That's how it works. Yeah, you're right. And we were like, no, hold on. It can't be true. It can't be true. It's impossible. Like, look, we'll look at the bulletin. Like, like right now, and we'll look at the bulletin like in the web archive. It can't be true. He was like, no. It is true. That's how it works. You're right. Yeah, just the way you understand it is correct. And we're like, no, hold on, but yes. And then he was like, okay, so just let's go to the bulletin. So he's trying to go to the bulletin. He cannot find it. And that's what's funny. He can't find that explanation. And I'm like, okay, screw it, whatever. I'll find it for you. I'll get to his computer. He goes to lunch. I found that line where it actually says this. Okay, it says that. And he comes back from lunch. He's like, yeah. It clearly states that. I probably should have brought some screenshots. It clearly states that only 12 hours can be transferred to PhD. And he's looking at it. He's like, yeah, you're right. That's what it says. But that's bullshit. That's not true. And I'm like, okay, but how? Why? If you can't believe Constitution, how do you know? Like, who can we believe? Do we believe Constitution or believe you? And then he was like, well, it's just a mistake. It's just like a typo. That's not how it should be. And then he pulled out like a paper copy from 1997 bulletin. And then there it says that like, this is true. And I'm like, wow, okay. So the graduate director, so this guy was correct. This guy was correct from the very beginning. He was right about everything. He told us exactly what it was. Okay. Now, the department doesn't believe us. The new graduate director doesn't believe us. Why? Because they're looking at the bulletin right now, and the bulletin clearly says that only 12 hours can be transferred. So we were extremely happy. We're telling him, can you please explain this to our department? Can you please tell us that? Tell him that. And he goes like, yes, I'll explain it. And he sent an email. Okay, he explains the whole thing kind of, and then department agreed. So literally, department agreed that, yeah, okay, well, kind of didn't, not like they apologized for us or anything, but they said like, yeah, okay, well, if ombudsman says that, then just I don't know how to explain it. Okay, but the department agreed. They said, okay, so we're gonna let you guys graduate. Okay, so ombudsman was not in opposition. He, again, like 1997 bulletin, the paper version was different from the current bulletin. There was no change in between. It just completely screwed up the whole thing. And we yeah, so we were able to graduate, right? So okay, so like 2014 graduate director was actually correct. Okay, he was right. And then we were able to graduate without any issues. And now cherry on top, cherry on top. You ready? Cherry on top, cherry on top, cherry on top. So cherry on top. I emailed those students. I emailed like, I think 3 students who were supposed to be in a similar position. I think 1 or 2 of them replied because they had already jobs, they already graduated. And what do you think they told me? They told me, yes, we thought that this was true. Then we then we did exactly the same thing. We were about to graduate. We came to the secretary that told us that we're missing 12 classes. Why? Because they went to the bulletin, and the bulletin said that we're missing 12 classes. We thought that that's screwed up, but what can I do? And they took 18 more classes, 18 more hours. And then so they took 18 hours, which they should not, which they were not supposed to be taken, which were absolutely useless. They took like the 6 more, what is it? Yeah, 6 more classes, which were not needed. And they graduated after that, and no one knew about this. And they kind of, yeah. Whew. Does it make sense? What's going on?
Yeah, that's an extremely crazy situation.
Yes. So why am I telling you this, right? So like, kind of, what's the conclusion? It's nuts. It's absolutely insane. And I think honestly, it's possible that that line is still there. So it makes perfect sense. Graduate director has been working for a long time. That's why he was saying what he was saying. The new graduate director, he's been working for like 6 months. What can he do? He would go to the bulletin and just look at the bulletin. The secretary has been working for a few years. She goes to the bulletin and she sees the bulletin. And they of course would believe the bulletin, right? So somebody did a poor job, and it's like, so now again, they would tell us what they're telling us. Now we were kind of like, I don't know, we were frustrated enough to go to the ombudsman. We actually went there, and he was like, he's a very old guy, and he's been working also there for like, I don't know, huge amount of years, and he told us what's true, what's not true. Okay, and these guys, so again, it just makes perfect. It just like that the puzzle kind of like makes like perfect sense. What says what, right? So, and again, the worst thing is that it's possible right now. I didn't check it, of course, but it's possible that it's still the same thing. It just still says the same line. So, kind of what the ombudsman was telling us is that this is true for medical students. For medical students, you cannot become a medical doctor just for 60 hours. If you want to be if you want to be a doctor, then you can't. Then you have to take more classes. But that medical part was not written there. It was saying that it's true for everybody apart from somebody else. So of course everybody assumed that it's true for us. So completely screwed up. So conclusion, what I'm trying to tell you here, ombudsman, okay? So if you think that your rights were violated, and again, you have no idea what to do, go to ombudsman, or like whoever, whatever's that called at Clemson. That's number 1. And number two, and that's, yeah, okay, 1 minute. Number 2. So there is a document which is called program of study, okay? So this one, I'm showing a screenshot from the doctoral program study, so that's for PhD, but the same document exists for masters as well. Okay, so now listen carefully. There is a document which is called program of study, or maybe it's called something else, but here's how it works. Here you lay out your first name, last name, all the information, but here also you're saying what classes are you planning to take, okay? What classes are you planning to take within a year? Well, yeah, so here you need to, it's kind of like 4-year plan, but it's much more official. So this document contains, which we did not know about, again, because just like the big school, you have to figure out everything on your own. Well, this is my case. So program of study. Here you write out all the classes that you will be taking until your graduation. Okay, so you need to do kind of what we're doing here, like with a 4-year plan. You fill out all the classes, then you come to the secretary and say that here's my plan. She counts all the classes, okay, and she says that, okay, so if you take these classes, if you don't like deviate from it, if you do exactly what this document says, then you will graduate. And she signs it. And then this document goes to the dean and he signs it. And then this document goes to the graduate school, basically to ombudsman, okay? Well, the ombudsman is a different person, but there are some people in grad school. And they also look at it. They check all the check boxes. They look at all the marks and then they sign it. And as far as I understand, if they signed it, there is no way they can back out. No way they can say like, look, you know what, there is 1 more class or 2 more classes. So there was a misconception. It's basically a contract between you, your department, and the grad school and the whole university. It has a lot of signatures, which says that if you do this, if you don't change any classes, we guarantee that you're going to graduate. And I didn't know about this document, and well, yeah. And then, of course, after the whole incident, after the whole situation, we actually signed this document, and then I was absolutely sure that I'm going to graduate, and then that's what happened. So at UC, it's called program of study. Probably somewhere else, it's called something else. But usually, yeah. But it got to exist. And my advice is to fill this out and have it signed as quickly as you can. Maybe not the first semester, maybe second semester. Just that's definitely, because you may end up in a situation where you think you're going to graduate, but something happens and you can't. I think the only way these can become false is if something happens to the professor and the class that is not offered anymore in that term, which is of course not what we're talking about, right? You can substitute this, you can just like make it re-signed. Okay, that's different. I'm talking about avoiding situations like I had, like where just additional, like, I don't know, 6 hours, 6 classes, programs of study. Whew, that's it. That's all I have for you. Does it make sense? The last story, did it make sense?
Yes, that all makes sense.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so again, ombudsman. So if something is wrong, go to ombudsman. And again, I would highly recommend filling this out as soon as you can. That would be to your best advantage. Would you have any questions?
Nope, I have none at all. I appreciate you doing this.
Okay, perfect. Let me stop the recording.